So in this video, Hank and I are going to talk about Boolean expressions. And Boolean expressions are basically expressions that evaluate to one Boolean value, which is either true or false. So when you've seen the stereotypical coder on his computer or on her computer, you probably think of a bunch of zeros and ones. And that's because everything in computer science can evaluate to either a 0 or a 1, a true or a false. So let's start thinking about this, how we can make Boolean expressions. So in our scenario that we're going to build today, we're going to talk about football, because it's football season. And in this scenario, Hank and I are in the marching band. So the marching band needs to play Hark the Sound whenever we win a game. So let's go ahead and make two variables that are numbers and are going to be the home team's points and the away team's points. So let's let home team or home points be a number, and let's say home points is 21 points right now. And then let's let away points be a number, and let's have the away team points be 10. So right now UNC is the home team. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to ask if the home team won and if we should play Hark the Sound. So let's just print the expression home points is greater than away points. So this prints on our web page true, because home points is greater than away points. Well, winning in our scenario simply isn't home points is greater than away points. To win, you have to have more than 20 points, you can't have the same score as the other team, and you have to win by at least 10 points. So let's go ahead and make should play alma mater, which will be a function that checks if each of these conditions is true, and if it's true, all three of those, then it returns true. So first, let's go ahead and make our method declaration. Function should play alma mater, and the parameters it's going to take in are home points, which is a number, and away points, which is a number. And then the return type of this is going to be a Boolean, just like our print statement returned a Boolean. Awesome, so let's go inside this and make our first condition. So our first condition is we're going to ask if home points is greater than away points. If this Boolean expression evaluates to true, we'll go inside this if statement and ask our next condition, which is if home points is greater than 20. Because in our game of football, you have to score over 20 points in order to win. And then finally, we have a third condition in our football game, which is inside the previous if statement, and that is if home points minus away points is greater than or equal to 10. We're going to go inside the final one. And that's because in our game we want big wins. So we want UNC to win by 10 points in order to play Hark the Sound. So then we go inside that and say return true, because we met all of our conditions. Otherwise, you can go to the final closing bracket and right above it say return false. So I use that word otherwise that we normally associate with else statements, but you don't actually need to say else return false, because the way return statements work is that once your computer program gets to a return statement, it evaluates it and immediately exits the function that it was inside. So if we in fact return true, you don't need to worry about that return false happening later. But if we don't follow all three of those if statements, return false will happen. So let's go ahead and run our code. So we're going to go ahead and say print should play Hark the Sound, home points, away points. And we can see that true printed out, just like earlier when we just said print home points is greater than away points. So let's take one look back in at our code and see that we can do the greater than operator in Boolean expressions, we can do greater than or equal operators, and yeah.
Alright, so that was a lot of code. We've got 3 different if blocks nested within each other, and it's kind of hard to reason about, and it looks kind of ugly. So we're going to see if we can clean up the code that we've just written and make it a little simpler and more elegant. So right now we have 3 different conditions that we want to check inside our should play Hark the Sound function. And turns out we don't have to break these up into separate if statements. We can actually put them into one with the and operator. So any condition that any Boolean expression that you have, if you put the and operator, which is 2 ampersands, and then another Boolean expression, those 2 Boolean expressions joined by the and operator will be reduced to one Boolean value, either true or false. So if the thing on the left is true and the thing on the right is true, then the whole thing is true. Otherwise, the whole thing is false. If one of them is true, one of them is false, it's false, and if both of them are false, then the whole thing is false as well. So the AND operator tells us that the only way we want this statement to evaluate to true is if both things on both sides are actually true. So we can use that to combine our first two if statements into one. So in our first if statement, we have if home points is greater than away points. So inside that same set of parentheses, we can say double ampersand and then use our second function, which was home points is greater than 20. So now in our first if statement, we have both conditions, if home points is greater than away points and home points is greater than 20. So now we can go ahead and delete that second if statement because we've used that condition in the first one. And when you're deleting things, don't forget to delete both sets of curly braces. Awesome, so now if we save and run our code, we see that nothing changes, the same value of true is printed out on our screen. Alright, now as you might be thinking, we can do the same thing with our last Boolean expression. So our last if statement has that logic of if home points minus away points is greater than or equal to 10, we can do the same thing and just put another AND operator in our first if statement and then put that condition. And so now we have these three things, these three conditions with AND operators. And what we're telling the computer is, I only want you to go inside this if statement if all three of these conditions are true. And so now if we save our code and run it, we see nothing changes again, and this code will do the same exact thing as our three nested if statements before, it just looks a little nicer. Okay, so say we wanted to make this even more complicated. We're inventing some strange game of football here, and we're in Comp 110, so say in this strange version of football, the number 110 is really important, and if your team scores exactly 110 points, no matter how many points the other team has, you also win. So, now we have a different kind of logic, right? We want to say, if all three of these conditions are true, or this one other condition is true, then UNC wins and we should play the alma mater. So we can use the OR operator, which is these two bar symbols next to each other. And we're kind of grouping our logic here, right? So we want either all three of these things or this one thing. So we're going to put a set of parentheses, an extra set of parentheses around these three conditions to group them into one. And then after that set of parentheses, we're going to put the OR operator, which is those two pipes or two bars. And then after the OR operator, we can put our OR condition, which we want to say if home points is equal to, with triple equals, remember, 110. So now, when the computer looks at this complicated looking expression, it's going to look at both sides of the OR operator first, because we put parentheses around the AND thing. It works like order operations in math. If you want something to happen first, you can put parentheses around it. So it'll check if all three of these things are true, or if home points is equal to 110. So now if we make our home points up at the top be 110, and say we make the away points something bigger than 110, so make the away points like something 300. Then if we save our file, we should see that we still get true printed out to the screen. So UNC still wins. Alright, so Kate and I actually wrote a function that plays Hark the Sound, because we thought that would be fun. So underneath where we declare away points and home points, we can say if should play Hark the Sound, and that will call our should play Hark the Sound method, and whatever value, either true or false, gets returned by our should play Hark the Sound method will get replaced, the method call will get replaced with the result that the method returns. So that'll either be true or false. And then after inside our curly braces there, we can call our special magic function that we've imported up at the top that Kate and I wrote. Alright, so let's run this and see what happens.